Okay, so it looks like we're going to do a couple inverse trig examples here. So right now I see the inverses on each one of these. Actually, that one's not there. Oh no, that's there. I just have to lower crisscross. Okay, so we're set to go, and we're going to do a couple here. But you know what? This is just something you have to know. This is something where you're going to just see this inverse trig here, and you're going to have to kind of figure it out. So this is equal to cosine of some theta equals -1. When does that equal -1? And in my notes, I failed to do that earlier. I failed to do 0, or no, 1, 0, right? Let's see, 0, 1. That's for the right point. And then up is me 0, 1. Wait, that's right 1. It's me 1, 0. There we go. And then 0, 1. And then I go left 1, -1, 0, and then down 1, 0, -1. Okay, so I forgot to do that in my notes just a little bit ago. So I think about it and say, when did cosine equal -1? Well, that's when theta equals pi, or 180 degrees. And you could put that in a calculator, or you can just know your unit circle. Sine inverse of √3/2. When does sine equal √3/2? So which one is it? So I could go back to my notes and say, okay, the right side is sine. So right here is a √3/2. That's pi over 3, or 6 pi. So I know that's going to be true. So theta, or this thing, equals pi over 3, or it's 2 pi over 6, whatever, right? But there's another one too. Notice it's right here. There's another one right here, √3/2. So that's going to be at 120 degrees. So this is at 60 degrees or 120 degrees, which is 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6. So 4/6 pi, or 2/3 pi. So there's my two answers. So sometimes you're going to get two answers here. This one only had one, but there's me two answers on that one. So degrees or radians works. I would like you to go to radians, but whatever. All right, so when is the cosine -1? Cosine of what equals -1? Or -1/2? Cosine of something equals -1/2. So when is the cosine negative? That's when it goes to the left, right? When the left, either up or down, and when's it half? And so if I look at my unit circle, it goes left, -1/2 is right there at 4 pi over 6, and also at 8 pi over 6. So at 4 pi over 6 and 8 pi over 6, which is 120 degrees and 240 degrees. And those ones are both 2 pi over 3 or 4 pi over 3. Do you know the unit circle well enough? All right, let's do this one. I'm going to lower cosine -1, and then the √2/2 comes, and the theta comes. All right, so I could put that in my calculator and figure out when that is. I'm pretty sure √2/2 is 45 degrees. So 45 degrees, or pi over 4. But there's another one, and that's in the fourth quadrant, and that's going to be 315 degrees, or 7 pi over 4. Do you know your unit circle? All right, now I'm going to do it again. Sine inverse of 1/2. I can put that in my calculator, or I can look at my unit circle, know when what theta makes the sine of it equal 1/2. Well, that's the 30-degree one. So 30 degrees, or pi over 6. I like that one. But also in the second quadrant, it goes up and it's positive, so that's going to be 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6. So just thinking backwards from what the inverse, or the unit circle, does. All right, take a look at these ones. There's a little bit more complicated now. Multi-step things. So I have to think about, when does the sine inverse, I'm going to think about it in my head. When is the sine of something √3/2? So what thing is it? What angle is it? Well, that's going to be at pi over 3, or 2 pi over 6, right? So that's the first one I think about. So let's just do one of them. It's not a big deal. and then the tangent now of that. So tangent of pi over 3. Now that one is interesting. I don't remember tangent, but I do remember it's sine over cosine. So I'm going to do the sine over pi over 3 and then the cosine of pi over 3. And that's going to be root 3 over 2 and 1/2. I could multiply by reciprocal and get 2 over 1, which gets me root 3. But this is a good enough answer. I don't care if you simplify or not. All right, 2 more examples here. We're coming on 5-something minutes. So when is the sine of some angle negative 1/2? Now, I know the first one's half is pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. But negative 1/2 would be 7 pi over 6 or even 11 pi over 6. Interesting. So those ones both get you negative 1/2. Now, what's the cosine of those ones right there? Well, the cosine, if I go back to my unit circle, the cosine of that is going to be negative root 3 over 2. And if I do the cosine of that one, it's actually positive. So I'm going to do a plus or minus root 3 over 2 for my final answer there. Last one. This looks like it's the opposite this time. I got to think about the regular cosine with 3 pi over 4. That's going to be the second quadrant, which is a negative for the cosine. And that means it's going to be negative root 2 over 2. And I sine inverse that. What angle gets me that? Now, it's not 3 pi over 4 because that would be a positive 1. But negative would be in the bottom 2 quadrants, and that would either be 5 pi over 4 or 7 pi over 4. And I like both of those answers there. So hopefully those examples helped you out on your homework today.